Hey everyone, welcome to the Senior Rehab Project, the podcast for the community of rehab clinicians working to advance care for older adults. I'm your host, Nicole Nexon, and this is the State of the SNF. In today's episode, I get to sit down with Erinn Carey, catch up on what's been going on since I saw her at CSM, and talk a little bit about our experiences there as we both are currently working in a SNF setting. So, here we go. So I'm here with Erinn, and we're going to do a little recap of CSM from a SNF therapist perspective. I feel like there's a ton of things that we can touch on and that we will kind of address. But hey, Erinn, I just realized that we have actually not recorded an episode together yet.
You're right. This is our first time. How exciting.
I know.
Which, it makes sense because I've been working in a SNF since August. Should have jumped on that sooner.
Oh, I know. I've recorded with Troy and about our overlap, and I've recorded with Tali a little bit about students, and so we've actually met before, before CSM. Aaron and I had actually met. Yeah, IRL. we get to skee ball together and eat pizza.
Yes, we did. Very New York of us, I guess.
It was a lot of fun. So, Erinn, it was really good to see you at CSM. I'm glad we get to catch up again, especially with your move to the West Coast.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was wonderful to be like, Nicole, what are you going to? And we would sit and powwow together. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I liked how we went to some sessions together so we could sit there and chat about what was going on. And then I liked how sometimes we split up and then now we can kind of come back and take a look at different things because we have been kind of chatting about, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to continue chatting about things we picked up and things we learned and go from there.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's the way to do CSM is do some things with friends if you have common interests or split off and divide and conquer, especially if there's more than one session that you really are interested in.
Yeah. Because that was hard because sometimes I was all right, I'm going to be in 3 different places at once.
Yeah, exactly.
And as I have not figured out how to clone myself yet, which would be so helpful in everyday life.
When you figure it out, let's market it.
For sure, because I feel like we can make some money off that one.
Definitely.
So one of the ones that we went to together, actually, and it's funny because we're both talking about presenting it at work, is the documentation. So we both went to a session on documentation put on by the section for health policy and administration. And it was kind of fun. It was called "We're So Smart and So Skilled. Do you make that evident in your documentation?" And then she proceeded to show us all the ways that we didn't make that evident in our documentation, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah. I really liked, so the speakers were 2 people who I think they worked as PTs before, but now they were Medicare reviewers. And so
at least one of them was
denying our claims. So they're the ones telling us here is what we see. Do not do this. So I thought that was super helpful.
I do too. I liked when they talked about so she started it talking about the paradox of expertise, how we get so good at doing stuff, we forget that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And, we forget the skill involved in doing it. And I think we had this conversation too, actually.
About GATE.
About GATE, the GATE movement analysis, where she was spouting off all the things that she's thinking while looking at someone walk and move. And I was I forgot how much thought actually goes into what I do every day. I'm so used to just looking at somebody and being able to pull out ideas. I hardly ever run through the steps in my mind, and to see that outlined was really shocking to me. And I was God, I know a lot of things.
And I'm so I graduated, for those who don't know, I graduated in 2017. So I'm still pretty new, and I'm still in that phase of okay, there is circumduction during swing phase. That could be this, I'm still, I have to think through a lot of those things.
And what was interesting was that they were both actually telling us in the section on documentation about realize that you're thinking through those things and then write it down. They actually said at one point, the assessment is your thoughts.
Yeah. They said, write down your thoughts.
And write down your thoughts. Because your assessment is your thoughts. And I was that's the best way. I mean, when you think about assessing, it is observing, thinking about, and then explaining something. But to have someone be write your thoughts, and so bluntly was really kind of one of those moments for me that I was oh,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And like writing. So I thought before, like, if I did something and it was wrong, I like didn't want to document it because I didn't want to be wrong. But now it's like, oh, wait, that is part of the assessment. And that's okay because you're showing something doesn't work and that's fine.
Yes, and I thought they made a good point too. Also, when they were talking about how a plateau or decline is not necessarily a reason for denying a claim.
Right.
If you can talk about the logic behind why.
Yeah. So, like, whether it's a medical issue that could be causing the plateau or what your plan is for addressing the plateau, like changing your strategy. I think they had said those things.
Yeah, I can't find the exact thing right now, but basically that's what she was saying. Like, document your plateaus, but document why they happen. Document things that don't work, and then say why it didn't work. And I thought that was a beautiful thing too. Like, we don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, I found it in my notes actually. So they said, yeah. So they recommended that if there's no change, explain why, like medical complication or poor participation. And you can say something like, didn't progress as anticipated, and here's why. And so then they said to go on and describe what you'll do differently or explain why the current treatment is appropriate. Basically, you want to justify the potential for a positive response moving forward. And they actually gave some examples in their handouts. So if you went to CSM, you have access to them. And if you don't, sorry.
Yeah. And these are actually they made a really good section of handouts.
Many of the talks, some of them, they said they'd have handouts and there were lies.
Yeah. Some just had outlines, which was very disappointing.
Yeah. But at least the ones that did have outlines often had references, which I appreciated.
Yes. Yeah. I really appreciate anyone who gave their references, especially when you could they made them a nice little link for you.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Really good.
Yeah, so the CSM app this year, I want to bring up how much better it was than in previous years because the handouts were directly in the app and you could download and annotate them in the app. Which I didn't annotate them in the app, so I don't know how that user interface was. But the fact that it was an option is head and shoulders above every previous year. So. Yeah.
I think it depended, it was a little bit hard to do in the app because it comes up in a separate section. You couldn't do it directly onto the page.
Yeah.
But if you pulled it up on books, then you could annotate right on there. If you made a PDF out of it, if you downloaded the PDF, you could annotate right on there. So, I mean, people were doing it on their phones. People were doing it on their laptops. It was really nice to see, and they did make it easy. So I definitely appreciate that also.
Yeah, good work, Rusk. They were the ones who sponsored the app. I'm very much impressed. I don't impress easy with apps. I was impressed by this one.
I don't have anything to compare to, so I'm going to take your word on it, Erinn, that this year was a good one.
Cool.
So let's talk about some other sections that we went to. We talked about how we went to the movement analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying
geriatric specific movement analysis.
Yeah.
Or geriatric posture.
Geriatric posture and movement analysis. And you guys, if you went to CSM, pull up that one too. That is under the Academy of Geriatrics. And they have some really good notes in there too. I thought that was a good handout.
I really liked it because, again, as a new clinician, I often kind of get bogged down in the details. And she spelled it out in ways that I thought were really helpful and kind of allowed me to reset my thinking and have some notes to refer to if I get stuck. So I liked it a lot.
Yeah. And I like that she made it, she took a thing that could have been really heavy because of all the detail that's involved in it and because of all the layers of thought that each case study involved. I really appreciated that they made it kind of lighthearted, like the joke about the duck. She was on vacation and she was watching the duck walk and she recorded it and sent it to a friend with a gait analysis of the duck. Oh. And she was talking about how we just can't turn it off. I have to check myself when I'm out in public because I'll start watching someone move and then I feel like a creeper.
Yes, definitely.
But it's good to know that I'm not alone.
Thousands of dorks just like you do the same thing every day. So,
and we all had a chance to get together and talk about it, which I thought was really nice.
Definitely. That's one of my favorite parts about CSM is just being surrounded by thousands of dorks just like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all so excited about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked too about, everyone talks about how, outpatient is the sexy part of therapy and everyone wants to work with the athletes, but there were a lot of people like really excited about geriatric therapy.
I think all of the geriatric section things that I went to were full.
Yeah.
People are jazzed about it. So I give props to the AGPT for really marketing themselves heavily and well.
I agree.
Butts in those seats. I'm impressed by them as well. It was an impressive CSM.
It was. And like even I'm looking at right now, like the lineup that the AGPT had, and it's like fall prevention for older adults with amputation.
I went to that one.
You went to this one too.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, it's just going to be about amputation, but there is some really interesting carryover. How they're looking into the Berg with like younger amputee populations.
Mm-hmm.
This was the one they're talking about people tend to fall, and it's turning corners.
Yeah.
And like, how often do we train turning or like the pivot, or, you know what I mean? Like we're walking down like straight lines, but are you making them walk around an object and not just like turn to the left or turn to the right, but make almost a complete turn? That's where the falling is. And just like little bits and pieces like that made everything so worthwhile, because you walked away and you were like, oh, I can pull this from here. Adding power to the plan for older adults, improving community ambulation after hip fracture. You didn't come to this one, but weight loss, protein, and other macronutrients.
That was one of the ones that I was interested in. Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. And they had like some good places to go from there. You know, like they gave you some ideas and things to work with.
Nice.
What was some of the other ones that you went to?
So I wanted to comment really quick on the fall prevention in the amputee population.
Yes, please.
My favorite part of that presentation was the woman teaching us how to fall using Aikido falls. Like she talked about how in martial arts, they got to learn how to fall first.
Yeah.
She uses the techniques that she takes from martial arts and uses it with her amputee patients. And like, I just wanted to get up and try them. It was like the first session and I was like, I can't do this day one. Like it's not, no one else is doing it.
Or how about when she was like showing the video of herself rolling with that ball on the floor?
Yeah, it was great.
I'm sure it wasn't just me, because you're saying you did too, but like I was like, I have a ball at home. I have to go home and practice rolling. I want to roll right now. Like I want to get up in my nice work casual clothes and roll around on the floor of the
Yep, exactly.
of this convention hall, because I really am so interested in what's going on here.
Yeah, definitely.
It was fun, you know, and I think part of the thing that I struggle with sometimes with these courses is the sitting.
Yes.
100%. And to sit, and I feel like other therapists, we deal with this too. Like we're just not used to sitting. Like we're up, we're moving around, we're doing a lot of things. And I felt like there was definitely some fidgeting on my part, because 2 hours can get long.
Yes,
but there were a lot of times when the presenters, being therapists themselves, were aware of it and were like encouraging us to move or doing things that were entertaining, to kind of break it up a little bit. Like I was in one section where they all of a sudden they're talking about the 30-second stand test. Mm-hmm. And the presenter was like, let's do it right now. Everyone just go. And everyone just started like up and down and up and down and up and down. And it was hilarious. Like we were all laughing, but we were all doing it because we all understood, like we just needed to move at that point. And it kind of, you know, it was still serious. We were still learning, but it was nice to have like that little break from somebody who understood.
There were several presentations I went to that they had like stand and stretch breaks built in, which is exactly how it should be. Because I mean, especially now that I'm not in school anymore, my attention span for sitting and listening to someone talking at me with a slideshow, like death by PowerPoint is real. I have a really hard time. Yeah. So
it doesn't get any better the longer you're out too, let me tell you.
Great.
The longer you're out and the more I hardly ever sit during the day. I just tend to be a little bit more of a fidgety person anyway.
Yeah.
So it is torture for me to have to sit for a while. So I greatly appreciate that other people feel my pain and we're building it into their speeches and understanding.
The other talks I went to, there was one about positive psychology that I left about a half an hour in because I needed to take a nap. But I had friends who went and said it wasn't that great. So but I thought that there's like, it talked about different models of positive psychology and like using outcome measures for self-efficacy. And I thought that there might have been some good stuff in there. But my nap was more important. So
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you need to do that.
yeah.
There were a couple sessions that I was in where they talked about, and I feel like maybe we should explore this more, motivational interviewing.
Yeah. That's actually, yeah, go ahead.
It came up in a few, I'm trying to think, the one on low back pain that I went to, on geriatric low back pain, they talked about it. There was a couple other ones. They talked about motivational interviewing. I think they talked about it in the fall prevention for lunch amputation too. And
I know
some
it
of the
came
other
up.
things. Yeah. Like it kept coming up. And I thought that was like a really good thing to like get people to realize, because you've seen, especially in the SNF, and I had this conversation today with, I have an observing student right now. Like he's not actually in PT school yet, but he's getting his hours. And he was saying, I was telling him kind of like how you have to get the buy-in, and he was saying like he also works in an outpatient clinic, and he was seeing the outpatient clinic that they seem to be like very understanding of what they're doing lots of times, and they choose to be there. They bring themselves there. So they seem to be a little more willing. And so we were talking about like kind of building the relationship with the patient in the SNF. And you worked in outpatient before this, correct?
No, I worked in acute care.
You worked in acute care. Just the difference in buy-in that you actually have to do. And I found that to be true too when I switched from outpatient to SNF, that when people were in outpatient, it was because they chose to be there, like they chose to show up to that appointment. And a lot of times in like the skilled nursing setting, they're there because they chose to be there, but they chose to be there because their family and their doctors kind of encourage them that direction. Mm-hmm. And they don't feel great. Like they're in pain, they're scared, they're whatever. And you have to get them to buy in. And I thought that it was really interesting that so many presentations brought up the idea of that motivational interviewing and like how to get that buy-in. Maybe that's something we can talk about more at some point. You can find a cool article.
Yeah, actually on the list of series. So Talia and I are still thinking of doing series, by the way. We did two. But one of the things that people wanted to know more about was motivational interviewing. I went to this really cool talk. It's using visual thinking strategies in movement analysis. And it was it was the one where like they worked on observational skills with physicians by working with art history professors. So like they would start critiquing art and they would like practice just observing the art. And they talked about their visual thinking strategies using open-ended questions. Then they would discuss how their personal bias affected their observations and inferences, and how, but here's what they said. So art is good for observational training because art is meant to be seen and it's engaging and it often promotes deeper thinking and it brings a person outside of what they know or see day to day, and set an even playing field with their colleagues, which like, as we're looking at people, we need to have that deeper thinking and we need to think about our personal biases, and that can affect our judgment. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. There's a handout. It's in there somewhere.
Yeah. Seriously, guys, go to the handouts. Like I've been kind of hoarding handouts. I did this with the journals too.
Yep.
I did the journals too. I don't know if anyone else noticed this down in the vendor fair section.
I was with you.
You guys, they were giving out journals and I was just like, I'll take one of these. All the sections that like I never get the journals for, I was just scooping those puppies up. Like
you and Val both were like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And I was like, I'll just take this one. I got too much crap to take home anyway.
Yeah. Well, we also have my stack of paperwork that I'm still working my way through.
Yep.
The electronic paperwork, the stuff that I didn't print out would be just as thick, if not thicker.
Absolutely.
So for anyone who did go to CSM, go in and pull up the handouts, and maybe pull up the handouts for sections that you didn't go to, but you would think would interest you, because there's a lot. That was my biggest takeaway from CSM is there was a lot. And and I mean it in a good way. Like obviously, like I joked around. I would be fully aware that I'm an extrovert after CSM if I hadn't already known, because other people were in that crowd and they were like, I need to get the heck out. And I was like, people, give me your, yes. I was like, people, give me your energy. I was like,
I was like so drained. I was exhausted.
By the end, I was exhausted because it is a lot. There were so many opportunities to learn and meet people, and it was just amazing for me. Like, I think that was probably one of the best selling points of the thing, was just how many opportunities there were. If you were just like willing to just kind of sit back and like look, see what was there. I think one of the things that I was a little bit short-sighted about was I was trying to get all the stuff that was like the most applicable to me. So I feel like I maybe missed out on some interesting things. Maybe. Because I was just trying to like load up on like things I could use right away. But at the same time, like the fact that I got so much that I've already been able to integrate was great too. You know?
Yeah. I've noticed like over the years, this is my 4th CSM and I've been going since Anaheim. I've noticed that. So in Anaheim, I was a second year in school. Every single year, CSM has meant something different for me. During PT school, it was a chance to like go learn about something that they don't talk about in school. Mm-hmm. The first year outside, I think it was just like to get re-jazzed. It was in New Orleans about the profession and like to hang out with Dustin and get to know him and like that whole group. So it was really big on networking last year. And then this year, I actually went with your angle of like things that I can use in the clinic tomorrow. And it like every time it's just been a very different experience, but always worth it and always rewarding. So yeah. So I think it's okay you went with that angle basically, because I did too.
I felt this like compelling need to see and learn everything. And yeah. But you know what? Meeting people is great too. Like the people who came out to the drinks with us, out to the bar afterwards, like that was so much fun. Nice. I am so grateful to everyone who showed up.
We had a really great time. Y'all missed out.
Yeah, seriously. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to like meet people in person. It was great to hear like other people's experiences and ideas. And we even had a few people sneaking in from the women's health section. I know they changed their name.
They changed their name.
Yeah. But like, they even had like things to add into the conversation. You know, it was just like a really great group of nerds hanging out. And it was wonderful.
Yeah, that is the fun of CSM, in my opinion. One of the many things, I should say. Yeah,
it was really wonderful to put like faces with names and like get hugs from people, and you know it was really wonderful. Now, you did not come with me to geriatric low back pain, managing influences, experiences, and consequences.
I was sleeping. Yeah, I didn't notice that one. Noticing a trend. I was sleeping a lot.
It's okay, Erinn. Just do it now. Do it now while you can.
Right.
So this one, I was like, I think I like sat. It was a good thing I was sitting towards the back because I was like fidgeting in the best way. Like they just kept saying things that were so awesome and like so exciting to look at from a senior rehab project perspective with their article and their presentation. And like at one point they actually said, don't hold them back just because. And I think this goes back to what we talked about with the Reader's Digest article, you know, that like Dustin and everybody was working on this year, and all the things that we talk about in our Facebook groups and all the things that we deal with in our community. And it's just, use sound clinical judgment, but don't think that things are out of reach. Right. Just because of their age.
Yep. It's ageism.
Yeah. And you know, their handout is actually the article. So
I think I downloaded that one.
Paradigm shift in geriatric low back pain management. Yeah. So it's a whole article there. It's really pretty. And I'm not going to go into it too much now because I may have approached them and been like, we would love to talk about this some more with you. So that was a really great session. It was so dense. It was so dense on information that I was like, we need to talk more We need to talk more because it talked about all like biological influences. It talked about psychological influences. It talked about like gates and tests and measures to use. It talked about cognitive influences. Like you could just keep going down the line. Like it was a really solid thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then what else, Erinn? What else did you find? Because I know we split up again for a little bit, and you weren't sleeping the whole
right. I was not
time that we were not together. For sure.
Correct. Almost, but not quite. I went to a talk on pelvic health in the older adult, and it was really interesting. Mostly because I've kind of forgotten about those things from PT school, and they're super applicable in the SNF setting. Like, especially
that was my next question for you. Was it applicable?
Yeah, it was. Especially with the way payments are going to change and the push for taking on more Med B patients. They talked about exercises you can do for urgent continence with an older adult. Yeah, like talking about bladder diaries. And then they promised that there would be a handout, and there is no handout. At least there was when I looked for one, which is, it's super unfortunate because I feel with a handout, I could very easily like give an in-service at work for this. But that was a great one. It was a really good talk. I liked it a lot.
You know what else I liked too? I know that there are other people sitting next to me who got a little angered at some parts. Weight loss, protein, and other macronutrients, a PT's guide to older adults.
Yeah.
And I thought that what I liked about this one was, even though in like the SNF setting, I can't necessarily influence what my patient is eating, you know, because they kind of like meals are kind of what they are. What I can do is I can talk to the family members and make sure that if they're bringing in snacks or like supplements or meals or whatever, that, you know, if once the patient's been cleared to like get food, outside food brought in by family, we can kind of sit down and talk about some things that the patient might like taste wise, but also some ideas that are better for snacks and that are not as better for snacks. And I mean, you know, there's some people you just want to eat and you're like, I don't care if you eat chocolate donuts all day, like please put food in your body. And then there, you know, and there's some people that if you can like steer them in the right direction. So today, actually, to tie this in, we had a like little CHF group with some of the patients at work. This is one of the things that we do is CHF education. And we have a whole section where we talk about dietary changes and like managing salt and things you can use for flavoring and different ideas. And I had the patient who was with me, her family, 2 of her daughters were with her. And they were like, this was really great for us because now we have an idea of like when we're cooking for her, things that we can avoid, or when we get takeout food, like things we can avoid and things we should use to make sure that we're like, you know, helping her instead of hurting her. And I thought, all right, so even if I can't directly influence what my patient is eating day to day in the SNF, I can meet with them and their family members to talk about ways to continue this at home, to get them started on some ideas for home, or like I said, even food that they're going to bring in when they're visiting them. Like maybe try bringing this instead. I hear that they like this. What if you just modify it a little bit? And I thought that was like really, really interesting way to look at meal planning and, you know, weight loss. One of the things she said was that when we think of fragile older adults or fragility, we think thin. But in fact, there's actually, if you factor in the fact that we are actually having an obesity epidemic, you could actually be obese and still fragile.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I people like that on my caseload.
Right. And then she was like, well, how do you address that? Because you don't necessarily want them dieting because then they're going to lose muscle and bone. So, all right, now we have to figure out, you know, how to do all this. And I just thought it was so eye-opening. You know, there are things that I could address directly, like geriatric low back pain and motivational interviewing. And then there are things that maybe I can't specifically address, but I can still have an influence on, and just having that knowledge and having that ability to talk about these things and get more comfortable talking about things that are kind of traditionally thought of outside of our scope was very helpful also.
Cool. What did they recommend that you do for a person who is obese but also fragile?
Well, really what they said was if you have access to a dietitian, like pull him in. Like, do not be afraid to pull in your dietitian. Like,
Cool.
Especially in like the skilled settings, like we shouldn't be the be all end all of things unless we have that certification.
Mm-hmm.
But feel confident talking with your dietitian about different things. Like, don't be afraid to approach them and say, hey, I noticed this, this, and this. Don't be afraid when you're doing your discharge planning with the family to bring up the diet that they're on and be like, I see that, currently the dietitian has them on this, this, and this. Do you feel like you can carry it over? It's going to affect their performance and their abilities in the home functionally because of these reasons.
Got it. That's cool. That's helpful.
Yeah, it was really helpful. Like, so do you think you're going to do I know you can't do a presentation based on like the pelvic floor stuff you read, but have you found ways to integrate that?
Not yet. Basically, I want to go back through my notes and see if I can tease out something that I can give to my coworkers.
Yeah.
But I haven't quite done that yet because I got back and things are kind of crazy, similarly to you. So
yeah.
You get weeks here.
It's funny. You were like, I feel like it was almost this little bubble that we were in where we were like, we were so busy, but like we were like learning and doing and networking and meeting people. And then it's like, you just take a deep breath to come out of it. And then you're like, bam, back into SNF life.
Yep.
Like the SNF does not care that you were just out for like 4 days and your brain is so full of new information, it's going to explode. You need to be there. You need to be present. Like, come back and be ready.
Very true. SNF life. I mean, so there's one more talk I went to. I talk about pain management for patients with cognitive impairment. You want me to talk about that for a little bit?
Oh yeah, please do. Because I did not get to go to this one and it sounds super interesting.
So this is one that I had a chance to like look through my notes and like get something together. So I do want to have a little disclaimer before I start talking about this, is that there are many, many therapists in this world who are much better at pain science and management than me. So this is coming from my limited background of understanding pain stuff. But the thing that I found most applicable to the SNF setting is the different screening tools that they presented. And they had a buttload. There's so many. But they're specifically for screening for pain, and a lot of them are observational, and they all can be used with people with different levels of cognitive impairment. And they specify that, whether they can be nonverbal or have moderate to severe dementia. It's cool. Okay. So all of these, I'm going to give links in the show notes for how to access them or information about them. So there was the Brief Cognitive Assessment Tool short form, or the BCAT-SF. It's better for mild cognitive impairment, but you need to be certified to use as per their website. You have the MOCA and the SLUMS. We use these in the clinic all the time, so I'm not even going to go into that. Do you use them in your clinic, or the OTs probably do?
Yeah, the OTs probably do, and a speech does too, but I do tend to go over them with them, and I like the clock drawing test too.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the checklist of nonverbal pain indicators. It's an observational screen that often CNAs use, according to the people in this presentation. But it's really good for people who are nonverbal and or cognitively impaired.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so you look at their reaction, like if they're grimacing or you think they're in a lot of pain when they're moving or when they're at rest. So then there's the MOBID-2, Mobilization, Observation, Behavior, Intensity, Dementia. They like made up that acronym. That's not a real acronym. I don't know what they were doing, but whatever. But it is specifically for use with patients with moderate to severe dementia or people who are unable to self-report pain. It's a really responsive measure, so they recommended it to be used pre and post pain interventions to see if what you're doing is effective. There are instructions for use. There's an article about it that I'll also put a link to in the show notes. And it can be used to tease out musculoskeletal pain versus visceral pain, which I think is really helpful for a person with moderate cognitive impairment.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm super interested to see what that one's about.
Yeah, MOBID. It's the dumb one. Well, the dumb name. Yeah. So then this is where my notes get a little funky. The DOLO +2. I don't actually know what it stands for, but their website recommends a self-assessment prior to administering. It's better if you already know the patient, and it tracks changes in behaviors. And it's a relatively new tool, so there's not a ton of data yet, but there's apparently like a psychological component to it as well. So that's pretty cool.
So would this be good with like the long-term care patients or
something? That's actually, absolutely. The long-term care patients that you're familiar with and you've seen and you kind of know their behaviors. This would be great for that.
Okay.
Then there is the non-communicative patient's pain assessment instrument, or no pain. These titles are great.
Yeah.
It takes about 5 minutes. Anyone can do it. It can be used as a screening tool to document, to support a therapy referral. It's also not standalone, so they recommend using like 2 other screening tools. And there are pictures. How fun!
Nice.
They brought up that the gold standard for pain assessment is whatever the patient says their pain is, which is something I had forgotten, but sounds like something I learned in school. Then
it's something we fight against too. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. You're right. Yeah, because like you know those people that are like, I'm in 10 out of 10 pain. I was like, cool.
Yeah. I know, because you get those scales and they're like 10 out of 10 pain means they have to go to the hospital. And then you have a patient who's like flat affect, I'm in 10 out of 10 pain. And you're like, all right.
Yeah.
And you have that instinct to be like, no way.
Right? Like, you're not.
But then you're like, I'm actually not feeling what they're feeling. So I just don't know. And I have to just accept it. And I feel like that can be a hard thing for us to like sometimes.
Absolutely. I definitely struggle with that. Like, I'll like go to the nurse and be like, she said she's in 10 out of 10 pain. Just so you know. So then there is the pain assessment checklist for seniors with limited ability to communicate, or the PACSLAC.
Okay. Ooh,
PACSLAC.
That's just silly.
Right. So it is a comprehensive screening tool. It's one where you can use pre or post, and you just compare the prior score. And there's no normative data for it yet. And then they mentioned that all of these pain tools are apparently available on geriatricpain.org. And I looked, and not all of them are. So that was fun. But a lot of them are.
Okay.
And actually, there's a lot of cool information on that website, geriatricpain.org.
We'll definitely have to add that to the show notes.
Yeah. And then the last one that I wrote down is the Pain and Advanced Dementia, or PAIN AD. It is observational. It's apparently really easy to use. It's got good research and reliability. It's sensitive to change, and it can be used daily. So a lot of these have different strengths to what they are able to do.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I thought it was awesome that they were just like, here's this and this and this and this. So like I can pick something specific for my patient. And then they talked about occupational therapy role and speech therapy role in pain management with patients with cognitive impairment. It's mostly things like manual therapy, working with a team on pain management, posture and ergonomics, compensatory strategies, kind of like our bread and butter.
Yeah.
You know? So that was one that like I'm going to do an in-service at work, showing these different screening tools.
Can you record that in service and then send it to me?
Sure, why not? I'll at least send you the PowerPoint.
All right, I'll take the PowerPoints.
Cool.
Just have someone hold your phone and be like, just.
I can like Facebook Live it to you.
Oh, Facebook Live.
Yeah, our favorite.
Nothing Erinn and I loved more than a good Facebook. Troy was super excited about them too, let me tell you.
Troy can do it all he wants. I'm over it.
No, Troy was about as excited as you and I.
Awesome.
I did find it ironic that the 3 people on the team who are like the most averse to putting themselves on Facebook, like I don't mind it. I struggle for sure with like having myself on camera and having myself like in pictures. And like the 2 of you had that reaction too. And I find it ironic that we were the ones who were there, like in charge of sharing things with people. Although I had fun tweeting.
Nice work.
The live tweet part was fun because it was just words. It wasn't pictures of myself. And the chance to do something ridiculous on camera.
Yeah, you did a great job with live tweeting. Like, I can't even do that. I'm like burned out from social media. I have a really hard time putting myself out there and being like, here's this.
Yeah.
Can I stop now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like super harsh on myself. I'm like, well, I'm making a dumb face.
Same. Like,
Yeah.
yep.
So yeah, so that's very interesting. I did have a super lot of fun live tweeting it. And what's actually good about the tweeting was that I really strove to grab all of the references.
Yeah.
Kind of thing I tweeted on there. So I'm going to sit down. There's a couple articles that I actually wanted to pull out and look at based on that. So I'm hoping to get a few more episodes based on like those tweet streams.
Yeah.
Some ideas based on that. So you guys, you have to scroll back now on Twitter, but if anyone wants to ask any questions about anything that was tweeted there, or anyone has anything that I tweeted about that they would like to see more of, like reach out and let me know, and I'll try to pull up the information for you guys for sure.
Yeah. And if go ahead.
No, finish.
I was going to say, if there are any articles that you would want to hear me and Nicole and or me and Tali talk about on the prereq section of the show, please just shoot me a message. I'm not active on Twitter. Do it on Facebook. I can't. That's pretty much what I got for CSM.
Yeah, like I said, I'm so glad I got to do this recap with you.
Yeah, this was fun.
The first day that I went home and then I had to go to work and eat lunch by myself without you and Troy and Val, I was sad. I was like, oh. I mean, I had my coworkers, but it wasn't the same.
No.
Like we weren't eating like way overpriced food inside like a super crowded convention hall with like people running by and,
the magic
struggling to find something. Yeah, the magic. I was like, oh, I actually don't get to see them again for a while because you all went back to your faraway places.
I know, well, it's just me. I'm really far away. Like flying out east is rough.
Oh, I'm impressed. I just want to say, I'm impressed by everyone who came in from like California and Washington. Like, I feel like everything I went in, I met somebody from California. And you guys, like, I was like, I have to drag my butt 4 hours south, and this is
yeah, like Jamie Lowy.
Pat on the back for that. Yeah, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And yes. Celeste came in for a while, and just people were just popping in from all over. It's kind of fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's it. I would just love to, again, say, like, I had an awesome time at CSM. I'm so glad I got to hang out with you and Troy. I'm so grateful for all the people that I got to meet and all the things I got to experience. And, it was a lot, and it was a lot in a really good way. Yeah. And from my perspective as a therapist who works in a skilled nursing facility, there was tons that I could take away and use instantly. And there's tons that I can like integrate into other things. And it really was worth it. Every time I looked at the price, there was a little part of me that died. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
If we're being honest, there's a little part of me that was like, oh God.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. But if you look at, if you need to look at it from the perspective of getting your CEUs and, from the focus that I had, getting your CEUs and finding things that are usable in the clinic and usable day to day, like it is worth it. It shakes out. If you're looking at it from the perspective of just like networking and meeting people and getting new ideas, it's worth it. Like it was a lot. And it was a lot in a good way. And just kind of bite the bullet and start budgeting now for next year.
That's right. If you're a hoarder and just like free stuff, it's for you. It's worth
it. So many pens.
I'm partial to the conference chapsticks, actually.
Oh, I didn't get any of those. I got a new goniometer though.
Oh, look at you. Oh yeah, I got a bunch of measuring tapes because we keep losing them in our clinic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got a self trigger point release ball.
Ooh, nice.
Mm-hmm. That was my big score.
CSM was awesome this year. I loved hanging out with you and Troy. I want to do it more next year in Denver.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm starting budget now.
All right. Yeah, team budget. Erinn, thank you again so much for talking with me. I'm glad we get to catch up, and I'm glad we get to hash things out a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nicole. It's really fun to be a guest on your segment.
Hey, anytime.
Cool. Well, awesome.
I hope you all had as much fun listening to this conversation as Erinn and I had having it. And I want to thank you for listening to the Senior Rehab Project. If you've gained from this episode, consider supporting our work. You can become a patron through Patreon, a service that allows people like you to support people like us. You can give as little as $1 a month or become a game changer for $8.99 a month. We'll get awesome redefined old mug and access to all the cool things that we have going on. And we're still, shaking that all out in the new year. But there's definitely been some interviews that you guys will get first access to and some other projects that we're working on. So just go to seniorrehabproject.com to learn more and find the show notes for this episode as well. Talk to you soon, and remember, stay funky.